Welcome once again, or perhaps for the first time ever. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how often you listen to our lovely little show, the Far Post Podcast, presented by ESports Gaming League. If it is your first time listening to the Far Post Podcast, I apologize in advance.
I don't apologize. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should have been here before.
You've interrupted 2 times already, and we're like 30 seconds into the show.
That's what I do.
That's what he does. You'll get a sense for how things work here on the Far Post Podcast, presented by ESports Gaming League. I'm Jeff Lemieux, and we do finally.
I boo you, sir.
Have our full crew back for the first time in what is basically a year and a half at this point. The gang's all here.
The worst part of this new studio is we can't hear the boos.
We can't.
Yeah, we're way far away.
We can just insert them ourselves. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Boo.
A hiss.
Sucks. You're the worst, Jeff.
A hiss. I don't think I've earned a hiss
You're the
just
worst.
yet. All right. Well, I am here alongside
Nobody
Jason
likes
Dalrymple.
you, Jeff. Hey.
I'm just going to move on to the rest of the introductions. Jason Dalrymple's here. He's on the board. Cahal Conlon's here.
Hello.
How are
Hello.
you?
I'm good, thank you.
That was for me, not you.
And back from her trip to the Pacific Northwest, Elizabeth Pahota. I can't imagine Elizabeth's going to be on the Far Post Podcast much longer though, now that she's big time and on our
superstar
sideline
of
of television broadcast. This is a show not befitting of television sideline reporters. So I guess we'll say our farewells to you now that you're on TV sideline. But thanks for joining us one last time.
You guys should be honored to have my presence here.
Really, we really are.
Thank you, though, for everyone who's listening, who supported me on the broadcast, and all of you guys. I appreciate the positive feedback and all of the support. It was a really great experience for me.
Well, I only got to see the halftime interview with Steve Ralston, but everything I saw looked very smooth, very confident, very comfortable.
You don't watch the broadcast when you get home and
take notes and
you don't do that?
Of course I do.
Seems a little lax on your part, Jeff. Just saying.
Of course I do.
You only work 6 or 7 days a week. I mean, you can double up on games. You have some extra sleep you can give up.
I like to watch. I like to watch with the audio down so I can really hone in. I don't want to be swayed by the commentary in any way and let that affect my opinion of how the game is unfolding.
Okay.
I want to watch it without the audio so that I can get an actual grasp on how I feel about the game and not be swayed.
I mean, that's a great answer. You could also have turned up Elizabeth when it got to her interview. But anyway,
True,
I digress.
true. Thank you, Cahal.
That's so you're welcome.
I appreciate you
You're
sticking
welcome.
up for me.
You're welcome. I digress.
All right.
Carry on, Jeff.
I feel like that was an aggressive Jeff.
There's only one way to say it, Jeff.
I haven't heard my name said that way in a long time.
It's a tough name to say in a nice way, though. Like, Jeff. Like, oh, hi, Jeff.
Well, your name's
It's
tough
sort
to
of a
just say
hard
in
name.
general.
Fine.
Right again.
It always comes back to that, doesn't it? You're such a xenophobe.
Jason and Elizabeth, though, great names.
yeah, easy, just straightforward names.
Yeah.
We won't get into last names, but
Yeah.
No, we'll skip those.
Do people automatically assume it's okay to call you nicknames? Do people just say like, "Oh, hey, Liz"?
There's
Or, hey,
certain people at
Beth.
the club that definitely call me Liz that shouldn't at this point.
Yeah,
I've been here for 4 years, but
Yeah.
yeah, some people do. Although I do appreciate when people ask me, because I obviously say when I'm doing any stand-up or an interview that it's Elizabeth, but I also go by Pahota. But my mom growing up was super strict and would not let anybody call me a nickname besides just my full name.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would imagine you get a lot of that.
Yeah. Usually if it's
Lizzie.
early enough on, I can correct it, but then it gets
Yeah.
to a point where like I don't feel comfortable saying something.
Oh, hey, Lizzie.
I'm not a Lizzie.
What?
I did go through a Lizzie phase though when Lizzie McGuire was really hot on the streets that I wanted to be called Lizzie.
Of course.
I'm glad it didn't work out.
Okay.
Is Lizzie McGuire not hot on the streets anmore?
Hillary Duff is hot on the
Got to
streets.
figure out a different way to spend my weekends.
What streets are you on?
the street.
I feel like Pahota's the popular name for me around the office. Like a lot of people call
I
me
feel like you
Pahota.
should dictate what people should call you.
Maybe. I don't mind. Elizabeth or Pahota, they're my 2 names.
Those are the two
Those are
options.
your
Those
two
are my
names.
2
Yes,
names.
yes.
Actually, I was with my family the other day and we were all there and my brother's friend goes, Pahota, and all 3, me and my siblings turn like, which one?
Call, did you ever have a nickname?
I have. Yes.
I think we've actually talked about
Yes, I
this.
have a nickname,
Not in a
yes.
long time.
Yes. Most everybody knows me as Beaver.
Which I can't get over.
That's never been explained to me. I've never had.
I was just going to ask why,
the
but it sounds
beef
like
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's never been explained to me. But that's if you go to like, that's what most of my family call me. It's most of my friends back home call me. Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen my own face the first time that I was in the presence of you and your wife, and she called you beefer with no context. I'd never heard that before. All of a sudden, she just said beefer, and you turned and looked at her. I would have loved to see what my own face looked like.
It is funny when the first time that when you meet new people, or if you like, especially when the kids start going to school and you start meeting other parents, and when you talk to them a few times, and then they go through the whole what's your name thing, and they feel like they have a good handle on your name, and then Noreen's like, hey beefer, can you grab that? And they're like, wait, what? what did she call you?
That's funny.
Yeah, but it's never been explained. So you have that, Jeff.
I'm going to fall back on beefer.
Can we call you Jeff or Lemieux? Does that work for
Yeah,
you, or
you
is
can
it
call
that
me
just
Lemieux if you
Elizabeth or
want
Pahota?
I don't know, beefer.
Touche. Well played. Everyone is approved to use beefer if you'd like.
I was
If you
just
would like,
messing around. I don't think I'm going to stick with that
It's
one.
fully approved if you would like. That's up to you.
We'll play around on the podcast.
Well
but
done.
That's fully authorized.
All right. Well, I should note this is a fitting opening because this is a milestone episode of the Far Post podcast.
What?
This is episode 350
Good. Sweet.
of the Far Post
baby
podcast.
Jesus.
I know.
What are we doing?
And this is what we've been doing for 350 episodes,
Yeah.
and no one has stopped us.
Absolute nonsense.
Our first show was recorded back in March 2011 in J-Dow's
Holy
office
moly.
when we were still up in the stadium. It's been more than 10 years for us to get to this point, and this is still what we're doing.
That was up in the
so-
stadium?
Yeah, we just
remember-
literally just
remember my
closed the
old
door in
office?
J-Dow's office.
I see you're
the
old.
Me and J-Ro executive suite. Is that?
I can't picture. I can picture the interior of it, but I can't picture where it was.
Oh, we just used a handheld recorder.
No, in the old office space. I can't picture
yeah.
that.
Oh.
Yeah, it was over by Pat's PR with the printers and stuff. We came around the corner and there were like two little inlet cubicles. I was in one of them.
Yes. Gotcha. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Now I remember.
Special times.
Yeah, those were the glory days.
They were. That's what we should do. We should just talk about things that no one listening to the show
we
is going to have
launched-
any reference to.
We launched the
Remember the cubes and the
podcast
thing and
during a 5-win season.
yeah.
Yes, we did.
That's fitting.
We
Yeah,
did.
That is
Yeah.
fitting.
That was luckily it's already a 10-win season.
At least something great came out of that year.
2011.
Yeah. This did. This
The
show.
Far Post podcast
yes.
did come out of that year. It did. Indeed, it did. And we're going to talk about the team and current form and all that because there's a lot of great stuff to talk about. But I do want to, before we get into the on-field stuff, mention another fantastic announcement that came from the New England Revolution this morning, being Thursday morning as we record. But the club earlier today announced the New England Revolution Players Collaborative Fund, which is a fund that will be bi-monthly. The Kraft family will be donating $20,000 bi-monthly, awarding grants to local grassroots organizations that are working to promote equity and end systemic racism. And the Change Committee here with the Revolution has been doing a ton of great work over the course of the past year or so. There have been a lot of different initiatives that people have probably heard of throughout the course of the past year. But this, to have an actual $20,000 bi-monthly monetary donation, which the organizations that are benefiting from these donations are going to be chosen by a collaboration, a committee of New England Revolution players. This takes things to another level.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very proud day. And I think since we launched the Change platform, it feels like a year ago. I'm not exactly sure.
It was about a year ago. I think last
Yeah.
August is when we first started meeting.
Yeah. There's been a lot of good work touched on, as you said, but this is a real tangible model now that hopefully, is replicated around the league. But a really, really proud day, and it's really exciting that the players will get to, direct those funds and have a direct impact in the community. It's really exciting.
And that was part of the conversation with Earl Edwards today, who obviously is a board member of Black Players for Change and is involved on the Players Committee here with the Revolution. And he has been obviously helping at the forefront of this initiative as well. But we talked about how beyond just the $20,000 that's going to these organizations and the actual direct impact that this money is going to make in the community, the hope is when you have organizations like the Revs are and like the Kraft family is right now, who are at the forefront of these types of initiatives, that it then leads to a knock-on effect, that then other clubs around the league follow suit and that they see other teams making these types of efforts. And then they say, okay, well, how can we follow this up? What can we do now? And that it ends up being kind of a cascading effect that leads to more and more change.
Yeah, and I'm sure we all remember, right, at the time when this conversation reached sort of national prominence again in the wake of the George Floyd murder, right? And the point was that words without action are useless, right? And you have to start backing it up. And I'm proud that we've, continued to back up the words with actions and continue to take positive steps. And this is a huge one. It's a really exciting day.
I also think Earl deserves some credit in this conversation individually as well, because while a lot of players have stepped up and we've done a lot of initiatives around it, he's truly been a spearhead with this committee, with this trying to make change. And I feel like even today, like he said on the call when we were talking about this initiative, that, you know, whether a player wants to stay late and talk about it, if however long he needs to have a conversation with someone to spur change or talk with them to their comfort level, he's willing to do. And I think it's been inspiring to watch him be so passionate about this and really be a catalyst for the platform of change, as in our own initiative, and also this new one as well.
Sure.
Yeah, and Earl is the type of person who doesn't hold back, which is what you need.
Yeah.
He speaks his mind on
does.
these topics, and you can't have someone who kind of goes half in on these types of things.
No.
You have to have someone there who's pushing the conversation along and pushing the action along. And Earl has unquestionably been that type of figure for the Revs.
Absolutely.
So, it's been fantastic to have him involved, and hopefully it'll just continue to spur more and more change as we move forward. And we'll have more and more on that, obviously, in the coming months as more beneficiaries are named and that money actually starts going directly into local organizations, and we see the results of this money being put into the community. Let's do something we've occasionally done the last 10 years on the show, which is talk about the Revs in soccer. I know it's not primarily what we do, but
Like what, 349 of 350 episodes about?
yeah, we'll do a little bit on the Revs. Look, on our last show a couple of weeks ago, we felt like the Revs were at a little bit, it wasn't, it certainly wasn't a crossroads or a turning point, but it was at one of those moments, right, where they'd hit that first little blip in terms of results this season. They'd had 2 losses and a draw over a 3-game stretch. And in talking with assistant coach Dave Vandenberg, he had said, look, there's kind of 2 ways we can go here. We can fall into this type of pattern and continue to play the way we have over the course of the past couple games, or we can figure things out, turn around, show our grit, show our determination, and get back to winning ways. What kind of team are we going to be? We're going to answer it over the course of the next few games. Well, seems like we got a decent answer over the course of the past few games. The Revs went 3-0-0, picking up 9 points in 1 week for the first time since 2014. What have we learned, or what have you learned about this group based on the way that they responded over the course of those 9 days?
Go ahead.
I think this team has just proved how mentally strong they are, the tenacity they have. And, they always talk about how people are willing to step up and go into whatever place that their name is called for, but they really showed that, flexing their versatility with 19 players rotating in those 3 games between international call-ups and injuries. And you also have to look, you get 2 shutouts. You don't even have goalkeeper Matt Turner here anchoring those. You have Brad Knighton. So every single player has stepped in when they've needed to and truly done their job. And I think for me, the thing that sticks out the most is they look back at this 9-point week, which on paper is perfect, and they're saying, we don't like how we closed out the Montreal game. We don't like that 1 goal conceded. And their focus is on how they can improve on a seemingly perfect week. So I think the hunger of this team, the mentality, and the want to succeed, it just shows over a perfect 3-game stretch.
It was funny listening to Teal Bunbury talk today, because obviously we spoke earlier this week with AJ De La Garza and Tommy McNamara, and they had both said, they had kind of indicated, Elizabeth, what you said, that yeah, it's great to take 9 points from a week. We're happy with the performances. We're happy with the depth we showed. But yeah, we needed to close out that game against Montreal a little bit better. You concede the goal and then kind of rode their luck a little bit through the closing minutes, and they want to tighten those things up a little bit. And then Teal seemed like he almost took it a step further today.
Yeah.
Where Teal almost seemed like frustrated with the way the Revs have been playing. It's like, we got to start games better. We haven't put together a 90-minute performance. We got to finish our chances a little better. We got to get tighter here. He almost seemed like he was frustrated with the way they've been playing. And they're 10-3-3 in atop the Supporter Shield standings. But I think that's what you get with a Bruce Arena team, is it's like, look, yeah, it's all well and good that we're in first place halfway through the season, but what good does that do if you don't continue to improve throughout the course of the season and get where you want to be at the end of the year?
Yeah. Look, they're legit. That's what I learned, is that this team is legit and this team is built. It's built to win and compete. And it may not be 100% of the way there, but they have, to use a Boston sports cliche, they have a ton of grit and balls, right? And this team is like they've
soccer balls.
Yes, they win in all different ways, right? And we saw that in this 3-game stretch. But yeah, they're legit and they're ready and they're deep, right? We're a little bit worried and scared. You see, pick up injuries, international call-ups, and what's it going to look like? And they're ready, and that's encouraging. That we're sitting where we're sitting and we're talking about trying to get better. And when you add up all the ingredients, and it's it looks like a Bruce Arena team and a Bruce Arena squad with their attitude and everything else that goes along with it. And yeah, what sort of team are we? We're legit. That's probably the easiest way I can put it.
To add to that, just to like put into perspective the stats on it, you look at the 3-game week, there's 8 goals scored, 2 shutouts, 1 goal conceded, and 19 different players. I mean, just putting those sheer numbers out there, like the fact that they want to improve and they don't feel like they've had a complete 90-minute performance, but they've had those sorts of accolades in 3 games is just really, really encouraging when you're almost halfway through the season and this team is first place in the league, consistently first in the East, and legitimate. Honestly, at this point, I think we could maybe say that they're going to be contenders. They're at this point, if they play like this, they're going to be contenders.
Well, so I'll ask this question because I had it jotted down for a little bit later, but you've both kind of already touched on it, so you've kind of answered the question a little bit. But previously, every time we have talked about this team being in first place in the East, which they have been in first place in the East since mid-May at this point, so 2.5 months at this point, they've been holding steady in first place in the East, and they're now atop the Supporter Shield standings. There has always been that caveat that it's still really early in the season, it's still really early, still a long way to go. That's all still true. But this game on Saturday night at Red Bull Arena is the Revs' 17th game of the season. It officially marks the halfway point of the year. So at what point is it safe to say the New England Revolution are legitimate Supporter Shield contenders?
No.
It seems like everyone's pretty much in agreement.
We're there. We're there, and everything we've just talked about in the last 5 or 6 minutes, right? This would have been a period where you would have looked at and said, "Well, let's get through the Gold Cup, and they're probably going to lose Turnham. Let's see what happens then. We'll see what it looks like then. Let's see what happens after that." Now we're at a point where the results are still going. Carlos Gil is probably getting better. Gustavo Bo is getting better. We're in August, and you're in first place. You have to be a Supporter Shield contender. You've just put yourself there. Now we can't sit here in all honesty and say, no, we're not really. We just can't. We can't after what we've seen and what we've seen in this last little stretch here. And again, we had the little blip. And to Vandenberg's point and to our questions, it could have went either way. But championship teams respond to stuff like that, and this team responded and took 9 points, and I don't feel like we're still at the point where we can say, oh, I don't know. I know what they are. I know they have the best player in the league on the field right now, and I've seen their squad depth get stretched, and I've seen them respond, and I've seen everything I need to see to call this team a legitimate Supporter Shield contender.
Cahal, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And, I think the fact that the Revs were able to respond, this is, it's the first bigger blip, but they did have a little bit of that blip earlier, like around the international break, really small one. But this is the second time we've seen this team really respond and in a big way. And you look at the other teams that you would consider at this point championship contenders, like take the Seattle Sounders at this point. They've had 2 losses so far this season, most recently to Kansas City, who's also in that conversation as they're the top 3 teams in the Supporter Shield race right now. And, Seattle's kind of figuring out, like, how do they respond with the injuries, the call-ups, and the same sort of situation. And, like, I think the fact that the Revs have been able to have that response twice and show that they can consistently come back. We're going to see now how, like, the Seattle Sounders respond as far as, like, this loss and responding to injuries and stuff. But I think the Revs have just shown the mentality that they have. And it's here. It's not like, this stretch we're going to have this mentality. It's everybody's bought in from start to finish this season. And it's very clear how they've responded that I think they're going to be potential contenders.
And you referenced the defensive response as well to talk about going into Atlanta, shutting out Atlanta on the road, then going into Miami, shutting out Miami on the road with not only Brad Knighton obviously backstopping that group as a backup goalkeeper with Matt Turner off with the national team. There are 3 changes on the back line between 2 road games, and you pick up clean sheets in both of those games. And that was perhaps the most promising response, because on the last show we had talked about some of the struggles that were on the defensive end of the field. The Revs had conceded multiple goals in 5 straight games at that point. And then all of a sudden you bring in your backup goalkeeper because he has to step in with your MLS Goalkeeper of the Year candidate away on national team duty. You make all these changes on the back line, and you concede 1 goal in 3 games. I mean, that's a hell of a way to respond.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And look, it's summed up by someone like an AJ De La Garza, right? And that's when you talk about how Bruce builds his squads, right? And he has a brilliant knack for knowing when to push the button on a player. And he was sort of forced into it a little bit with AJ, right? But he's gone and played 3 positions across the back line.
Yeah.
Right? And, and it's looked fine, right? There's been no issues. And then you need a little spark in a home game, and you bring on Ima Boateng, and he lights it up for the last 20 minutes of that game, right? And Bruce has that knack of building his squad with the right mix of personalities and depth and positional versatility, and knows when to push the buttons. And For all those reasons, Jeff, I'm in. I'm buying. If this was Shark Tank, I would say yes. Let's make a deal. I'm in. I'm buying on the Revs as a legitimate supporter shield challenger, contender.
Cahal, you mentioned AJ De La Garza playing 3 positions across the back line within 2 games. And I actually asked him about that earlier this week. And he said, he's mentioned previously that it's been frustrating to not get minutes, but he knows he's a veteran on this team. And whenever his name's called, he can kind of just float into any of those positions. But I think what Bruce also does, in addition to building a roster that's really strong tactically on the field, is he's able to create a mix of very strong leadership in the locker room. So whether it's AJ De La Garza, who's only had a few appearances this year, but can be a presence to mentor players like DeJuan Jones, who has really grown into the left back role. He has a knack also for putting together a roster that can work well together and teach each other. So it's not just him who's doing the teaching all the time. He's able to build a squad that can also help each other.
I think what speaks most to AJ De La Garza is the fact that I tweeted on Sunday night that AJ had played left back, right back, and center back in the span of 5 days. And it ended up getting into kind of the LA Galaxy stratosphere a little bit, it ended up on their hashtag. And the number of Galaxy fans who ended up tweeting at me to express how devastated they were that AJ De La Garza is no longer on the LA Galaxy and how they've never recovered from losing him and his versatility and leadership. That, to me, spoke just as much as anything we've seen from AJ De La Garza here, is when a player leaves a club and the fans are just devastated that he's no longer there. Which
in turn goes back to what Bruce Arena brings you, right?
Yeah.
And in previous, he's been there and done that and won championships, and we all know that. And he's now bringing in players that have that caliber and that experience and have been down the block and know how to help a team that, hasn't necessarily been there before, or gotten over that hump before. And even when you go back to 14, right, and that was a really good team, but nobody in that squad had an experience of winning MLS Cup, right? And you obviously had a World Cup star in Jermaine Jones anchor in that team, but even the championship DNA has been missing, right? And that's when you bring in Bruce Arena, and then he brings players with him. And to your point, Elizabeth, about the blend in the locker room and the egos and how everybody mixes together. Mm-hmm. That's what you get with Bruce. That's what he builds, and that is playing out right in front of our eyes in this last. And as the squad gets stretched and people are able to come in and contribute, and the thing stays on the tracks.
Yeah, and you look at what has led to these improved defensive performances. I do think, obviously, the biggest issue that the Revs had been seeing over that 5-game stretch when they were conceding goals was individual mistakes.
Which we talked about in the last show,
individual
Jeff,
mistakes, which they were leading to. But they've cleaned those up. We haven't seen the individual mistakes over the course of the past few games. And also there was a little bit of a tweak in terms of the way that they were setting up. Whereas for these past few games, they've gone from the 4-2-3-1. It's been more probably like a 4-4-2 diamond.
Don't talk about formations, Jeff.
Formations
what it's done,
don't matter.
Come on, Jeff.
What it's done is taking those three, kind of playing with 3 central midfielders, putting them in front of that back line. I think it's giving a little bit more protection to that back line. And I think there's at least an element of that kind of helping tighten things up a little bit.
I'm not talking about formations, Jeff.
Fair enough. Well, if there were questions there for at least a couple games about tightening things up on the back line, no questions about the attack on this team. Mm-hmm. Carlos Gil, Gustavo Bo, Adam Buxa, all firing on all cylinders right now, which is terrifying for opposing MLS teams and is a heck of a lot of fun to watch for New England Revolution fans. The Revs have, for the past few games, been playing them as a front 3. You're seeing Adam Buxa and Gustavo Bo up top next to each other, Carlos Gil in the attacking midfield position in behind them. We talked, I think, on the last show about how is it that you best utilize these 3 guys together. Have they figured out how to best utilize these 3 guys together?
It certainly appears so, right? I mean, look, it's like we said, right? When you have 3 attacking DPs, you have to have them on the field. So if it makes sense with the way the types of player they are, right? That Carlos finds the game and drops into the hole and is a playmaker and is dynamic, and Gustavo is this raw, energetic talent that can do anything in any particular moment. And Adam is an absolute beast with the ball at his feet, holding up the ball in the air. You get those 3 clicking off each other the way they are, and it is, I mean, your word is right. You're frightening, I think you said, but they are so different, and we've started to see them play so well together. Now, no disrespect to Gustavo or Adam, but I think if you and I were up front, Carlos Heel would make chances for us, right?
I wouldn't finish them, but he'd create them.
He is that good at the minute. But yeah, it's you wonder if, and sort of how things happen from time to time, right? And Tejan goes to Gold Cup and you're forced into a little sort of formation change and you have to change the way you play and not maybe getting it as wide as much, and that sort of forces this three-headed monster onto the field, right? And it's going to be pretty hard to break that up now, right? And that's again why Bruce Arena is the head coach and I'm not. I'll be interested to see what he does when everybody's back, but this is pretty incredible to watch right now.
I think for me, one of the biggest things that has stuck out in recent play with three of them on the field is I think Adam Buksa in particular, his confidence. You can see he is playing just so much more confidently. And I think it's a production of he's been doing really well this year and he's been scoring. But I think now you see the production that he's had with Bo and Carlos and how he's kind of figured out how he works with them on the field. And I think that was something that kind of was, I don't want to say missing before, but it was still kind of in the works as to how that was the best way to get the best production out of all of them. And he's just playing so confidently now and you really, really see that. So I think that's been a big reason why he got a brace the other day is because he's been playing so much more confidently and will be assertive in those situations. There's no question of where you should be. He is on the end of balls. He's getting in the air, making sure he's in good positions. And that's been really exciting and impressive to watch from him in particular, because Carlos has been a consistent presence, always played calmly and confidently. And I mean, you take a look at Bo, even from the way that he kind of came into the league and with a bang because he had a banger. But they've always kind of had that confidence. And I think Buksa has really grown into it, especially over the last couple games.
Yeah, Adam Buksa.
Elizabeth, that's banga, not
banga.
Banga.
There's no R. There's no R in
podcast.
It's a banger.
Yeah, it's a banga.
I felt weird in a normal sentence just saying that Buksa had a banga.
He had a banga.
Adam
I'll work it
Buksa
in next time.
does certainly seem like he has very much found his footing in Major League Soccer. I mean, felt like maybe the finishing touch was that final piece because, Carl, to your point, he has always been a pretty integral part of the buildup. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know we talk about, I tweeted at one point how good his feet were for a big man, and you don't even really need the caveat. His feet are good for any forward.
It's that raw talent that Bruce Arena said he brought him in as, the raw talent.
Yeah, I mean, he can hold the ball up. He's great with the ball at his feet. We're starting to see that finishing touch come along, and he very much looks like a DP forward at this point. Gustavo Bo seems like, we talked, I think, hopefully, we were hopeful that international break was going to be helpful for Bo because he was dealing with a little bit of an injury before the break. We said, okay, it's going to be good for him to just kind of step away for a few weeks, just make sure that he gets fully healthy and come back healthy and recharged after the break. Well, 7 goals and 8 appearances since the international break. It certainly seems like that break let him get healthy, and he looks like a different player over the course of the past couple months. And when you've got that on the field, when you've got Gustavo Bo capable of scoring a worldie every single game, that's a different type of element.
Yeah, because you can't legislate for it if you're, I would say Montreal backing off him probably isn't the best piece of defending I've ever seen. But you can't legislate for that piece of, that's something that he may be the only person on the roster who has that in his locker, right? As good as Carlos is, that's not really what he does, but Bo can produce a goal out of absolutely anywhere. And look, when you start to think back to last year and what happened in the middle of the season, right, with having to go into the bubble and Carlos gets injured, and it's not a coincidence that Gustavo is a better player when he's playing with Carlos consistently, right? That's not rocket science to figure that out, that he would be better with Carlos on the field. So
I think everyone is
right. So I think when you combine all those things, and he's clearly looks refreshed and invigorated, and you have Carlos playing the way he's playing. If you're defending us, you have to try and stop Carlos. You have to, right? Because if you don't, then let someone else beat you. You hear that all the time. Okay, so we're just going to leave Gustavo Bo? Is that what we're doing? So, okay, fine. You have to pick your poison, right? So, and I think it was evident, right, with Montreal and certainly Toronto recently too. You could see they were trying to double up on Carlos, even for as much as that got them. And when you do that, there's inevitably space. You're leaving somebody unaccounted for, and if that's Gustavo Bo and it's from within 25 yards of the goals, good luck. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, and I feel like we should too. We sort of beat this horse over and over and over again. We shouldn't be beating any horses.
Yeah, but this particular horse is asking for it.
with Carlos Heel. But it shouldn't be lost. I feel like you can almost, when you see him perform week after week after week, you can almost become desensitized to it a little bit. And it's important to, I think, remember that what Carlos Gil is doing right now is not normal. You do not see players consistently, week after week, set up 4, 5, 6 quality scoring chances for their opponents. It is otherworldly what he is doing on a consistent basis from week to week.
Yeah, and it's funny, I'll name drop a tiny little smidge, right? And it's just because we had some ex-players back at the game, and Andy Dorman and I were chatting about this team, and he was more referencing how different the game is, even in the short time since he last played the league overall. But we got talking about Carlos, and Andy was asking the question, is he technically the best player that's ever played for the club? And we probably said he probably is. But then Steve Ralston standing right in front of us, and to get to the point, Jeff, about not appreciating how great somebody is, I don't know at the time when we were watching Steve Ralston, we all knew he was good, but I don't think we watched Steve Ralston and thought, oh my God, he is unbelievable, because you got used to watching it week in, week out, and now I think we're sort of, we all sit here and talk about how great Carlos is, but I don't think we're going to really appreciate it until he starts. Maybe it's a year or 2 years from now when you look back and you go, oh my God, because we're right in the middle of this now, and I think when he goes to All-Star and he's going to do something at All-Star that the rest of the league are going to go, what? Who is this guy? Right? Because it's weird that he's still sort of flying under the radar a little bit, I think, because people are like, okay, he's racking up assists and he's a good player, but I don't know if people from around the league are looking at him because they don't see him every game, and we do, and we're sort of in that, holy God, he's unbelievable, but also to your point, Jeff, well, yeah, that's just what he does.
I mean, All-Stars haven't been announced.
I was going to say, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
If he is not in that game, I am going to go to whoever's doing the voting and burn that place down. I will tell you now that he better be an All-Star. Because if he's not, something is wrong.
Bold move predicting Carlos Gil to be a 2021 MLS
That's why I'm here. Hot takes. Hot takes.
I mean, he was top of the list for the MVP power rankings yesterday, so I think it's a safe bet. But just want to throw it out there.
I will put money on it. Anyone want to wager? 100, 200, 500, grand?
Yeah, well, you pay me 500 if he's on the All-Star team.
I am the bet.
That's a great bet.
He is in. Write it down. Write it down.
Speaking of club legend Steve Ralston, I actually asked him specifically about Carlos on track to, break his single season assist record with 19, and Carlos is obviously at 13 after the weekend. And it was really funny to hear his commentary on it. Steve basically said, I actually was thinking from my seat, do I just toss some popcorn kernels down there, try to trip him up a little bit so he can't quite add any more assists on this game, kind of joking around about it. But I also asked him how exciting is it to watch him play and how he produces, considering Steve is such a playmaker himself and a club legend. And, he said it's been incredible to watch because, like you said, the game has changed so much, and his pace and his play is just consistently so impressive.
He might break that record in 2 games.
Well, I mean, he could.
Seriously.
It's in the realm of possibilities.
It's unbelievable.
Especially with the Revs heading to the Red Bulls this weekend, who he had 3 assists against the last time they faced the Red Bulls. But yeah, it's tough to find any real context for how well Carlos Gil is playing right now, other than to look at the assist charts in the league and see that he's got 13 and no one else has, I think, more than 6, to see that he's got 72 key passes and no one else has more than 40. But
he leads 3 categories. It's insane when you go to the website.
As legendary as Steve Ralston is within this club, best playmaker in Revolution history and one of the best playmakers in league history. This is a guy who has 135 career assists, which is 1 back of Landon Donovan. And I think it's a travesty that Steve Ralston doesn't still hold the all-time assist record. But Steve Ralston holds the Revs single season record, as Elizabeth mentioned, at 19 assists. Carlos is at 13 right now, and we haven't reached the halfway point.
Yeah, no, he's going to obliterate it.
It's absolutely unbelievable. He's got 6 game-winning assists, and it's already a single-season Revs record. It's 2 off the league record, not even halfway through the season. What he's doing is absolutely absurd at the moment.
Yeah, it is. It is, and he every game he does something where you're like, oh my God, and it's just routine.
Yeah.
Whether it's a piece of skill or making somebody fall down or picking a pass, it's unbelievable.
Now, you mentioned the big question is going to be, and again, luckily it's not for us to make this decision. We just sit back and watch and see what happens. But you mentioned this system has been put into place in large part because Tajon Buchanan was on national team duty. So you were able to put in a system where you had Bo and Buxa up top and Heelan behind them. when Tajon Buchanan comes back from Canadian national team duty, it's going to be really difficult to keep Tajon Buchanan off the field. But in the current setup, where's the spot for Tajon Buchanan? So that is going to be a really interesting conundrum.
What a problem that is to have.
As to what they are going to do here in terms of continuing to try to get the three DPs on the field together, playing the way they are right now, and then also get Tajon Buchanan into the mix, because I'm really glad I don't have to make that decision.
That's a great problem to have.
Yeah, and I don't know how can you shift off of this system with those three guys up top right now? But how can you keep Tajon Buchanan off the field?
I mean, especially considering how well Tajon in particular has been playing with the Canadian national team. Like, him and Turner, both stellar performances all around throughout the Gold Cup. So, like, with strong performances from them, strong performances from everybody who step up, who wins the job if everybody's doing so well?
It's great, and it gives you flexibility within the game too, right? Like if you start one way and it's not working, you can flip to that. It's just, again, added to the pile of problems. It's an excellent one to have.
We've been talking all about these standout performers for the New England Revolution. Let's get one of them onto the show. We will be back, or I will be back in just a moment, and I will be joined by one of those players, Revolution goalkeeper Brad Knighton.
Tell him I said hi.
Welcome back to the Far Post Podcast, presented by ESports Gaming League. I've gotten rid of the rest of the crew because I wanted this interview all to myself. It's very exciting. I'm now joined by a longtime friend of the show, Revolution goalkeeper Brad Knighton. Brad, thanks so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, it's an exciting show. You should feel pretty honored because you are our first in-person guest on this show that we're not doing via Zoom since last March. Really? So, yeah, it's been a while.
Wow.
So if I don't remember how to do this, I do apologize.
What do I do with my hands?
Yeah, I have no idea. I talk way too much with my hands. I have a tendency to put them up somewhere around here. It's also only our second show that we're doing in this studio space. You are our first in-person guest in this studio space, which we talked about a little bit before we went on the air. It's probably too professional for the Far Post Podcast.
Yeah, all this sweet mahogany. It's a bit much.
We need to get the walls lined with some books and stuff like that to give it a nice Far Post Podcast feel. And it's also actually, this is our 350th episode.
No way.
Of the Far Post Podcast.
Wow.
Almost a year's worth of Far Post Podcast shows.
That's insane.
It's way too many. It is insane. It's literally insane.
Have you gone back and listened to like the first ones?
We have a little bit of audio from the first show. Maybe we can splice some in to the show today. It's my voice is shockingly different, as I guess it would be 11 years ago. But it was it's been a journey, man.
That's
oh my
wild.
Word. Yeah.
Who was the first guest on the show, if you recall?
So we didn't have guests on for the longest time. Like we didn't have player guests on for quite a while. So it was probably only within the last 6 or 7 years we actually started having players on. I think we were like, why would we even burden a player with coming on and talking to these idiots? But then we just did it for so long that we were like, you know what? I guess we should try to class it up a bit. So that's why you're here. You're here to class it up a bit.
I'm here.
It is a special episode of the show. And speaking of special, our last episode of the Far Post Podcast, we spent the majority of the time talking about Paul Mariner. And the past couple of weeks have been so great to just hear everybody telling their stories about Paul and how special Paul was to them and how special Paul made them feel. And I know you've spoken at length about what Paul meant to you and what he meant to you as a young player coming into the league and helping you get started as a professional. But what we did on the show last week was just kind of tell stories about how Paul affected our lives and how we wanted to remember Paul. So I wanted to give you the opportunity on today's show. If you've got a Paul story, because I feel like everybody's got a Paul story. So what's the one story you would want to tell about Paul that you feel like kind of encapsulates Paul?
The one that comes off, quickly would be we were in a preseason trip down in Raleigh, North Carolina. We started off in Greensboro, and this was probably, what do you think, 2009?
2009, yep.
2009. And so we started off in Greensboro. We stayed at this hotel that was from the 1970s and was something unlike I've ever seen before, and not your typical normal MLS hotel that you're staying in. And it just happened with the times. And we ended up moving to Raleigh after the second part of the trip, and we stayed at this unbelievable hotel called the Umstead in outside of Cary, and so we were training over at the Carolina Railhawks facility. I think it was SAS back then, and so we were having training one day, and the whole staff and pretty much the entire organization was behind us. People were talking up about a race, and so I think there's a video floating around maybe from years past, but everybody in the organization was trying to set up this race between Stevie, Paul, Gwen Williams, our goalkeeping coach, Sean Kupiak, our athletic trainer, and then some other people got involved. I believe you were involved in the video.
I was involved in the race, yeah.
And so throughout the whole trip in Raleigh, Paul was sitting there, running around telling people, I'm old, my legs are all banged up, I can't really move. Meanwhile, Paul is literally sandbagging like crazy. I mean, he can still move. He can still probably play an 11-a-side with us. Meanwhile, you've got Gwen Williams just literally being able to walk or hardly walk around. He had surgery on his knee, moping around. Stevie, obviously his big size, 15 feet, running around in copas, and Paul just going around the entire trip saying, I can't really make this race, just trying so he could have a higher starting position. And so I know you had mentioned that possibly that they looked over and saw, you guys over there on the practice field just knocking the ball around, and maybe trying to get you guys involved so Stevie could find a spot for him to set himself up and align himself up with, so there wasn't that big of an advantage. And so I was like, yeah, I'll take over the camera, and you got Taylor on the commentary as per usual. And so Paul sets up and totally just sets himself up to this part where he was going to win the race regardless. There was no doubt about it. And everybody knew it, but everybody wanted to see it. And so he had the best head start of probably anybody, where he probably should have been back on the byline, running the entire length of the field. I think he started around the 18 or maybe 40 yards out. So he really only had to run like 70 yards. And so the race starts, the gun goes off, and all of a sudden Paul just absolutely busts one down. And he's running and he's laughing and giggling and passing all these people. His glasses are flying everywhere. And it was just, that encapsulated, Paul, that was him to a T, trying to wind everybody up, trying to have a good time, and then him obviously finish it off in fashion like he did. So hopefully you guys can find the video, and that's just a little tidbit of what I remember on one of my first preseason trips with the Revs and, Paul and himself.
We do have the video, so we've got to make sure that we can get that out there, because the best part of it too is that before Paul actually ran the real race and blew everybody out of the water, they messed with Gwen Williams first because Gwen had the largest head start, so he couldn't see anybody behind him.
Yes.
So they did kind of a fake start where they blew the gun, they started the race, Gwen ran the race, nobody else ran the race, Gwen thought he won, and turned around. I'm like, oh, did I win the race? And I was like, no one else ran the race. Then, of course, he was so gassed he couldn't.
Yeah.
Then that was again, Paul set Gwen up so that the one guy in front of him, just in case, he wanted to make sure that he had given himself an even additional advantage over him. And that might have been Taylor Twellman's commentary debut.
I think
actual
you might be right.
commentary debut.
I think you might
that
be
set
right.
him on the path that he's on now. He's only at ESPN because of that staff race in 2009.
So should he take his camera guy with him?
He probably, it seems like you created a bond right off the bat, right?
Yeah, fair.
So, it's like, is it like a caddy golfer relationship where, that's kind of what is that what it feels like?
I should have asked him the other night.
You really should have. That is a fantastic Paul story, and we do have video of that, so we got to make sure. I'm glad you told that story because we do have video. We got to get it out there. Well, Paul would be so proud of you and so proud of this team right now. I know he would love watching this team because this is a group that currently resides not just on top of the Eastern Conference standings, but on top of the Supporters Shield standings. And I know a couple of weeks ago, we sat in this room talking on the Far Post podcast about how you guys had hit that first little blip in terms of results this season, that little 0-2-1 run. And I spoke with Dave Vandenberg after that run, and he said, we're about to find out what kind of team this is. Are we going to continue in this type of run? Are we gonna kind of devolve into a losing kind of team, or are we gonna figure things out? Are we gonna get back to that grit, determination? Are we gonna kind of regain that winning form? Well, we kind of got an answer over the course of the past week. You guys go 3-0-0 in the span of 9 days. You take 9 points in a week for the first time since 2014. What do you feel like you learned about this group over the course of the past week or so?
I said it in the post-game press conference that our team is deep. We've got, people at every position, 2 and 3 deep, and that tends to lend itself to good results. Obviously, guys have to step in and do the job on a weekly basis, but we've laid the foundation in preseason, and these guys have bought into obviously everything the coaching staff and the organization wants to do moving forward on a weekly basis, and it's just doing the small things right in training. Stepping in and knowing your specific roles in your specific position, and then going out and doing a job professionally. And like you said, to bounce back like we did over that little bump in the road and continue to move forward. It's a week-by-week thing, like I said, also. And, a lot of things change quickly in this league. You just have to weather the storm and find what keeps us going and tick those boxes during the week and be ready for the game on the weekend, because every challenge is different. Every game is different.
You talk about the depth, and you've been saying since preseason that this is the deepest team you've ever played on. Unquestionably showed it over the course of the past week or so. You guys used 18 players over the course of those 3 games and came out with the full 9 points. As you are in that locker room every day and as you're out on the training ground every day, I know we're only halfway through this season, but it does feel like there's a little something special brewing here with this group. What is it for you that kind of makes this group of guys, this team, a special team that can accomplish something this season?
Yeah, I think we enjoy being around each other, which I can't say has always been the case here, the last 4 or 5 years. The guys enjoy being around each other's company day in and day out, whether it's on the practice field joking around, whether it's in the locker room dancing and playing music, whether it's in the meal room, whether it's in, the athletic training room, whether it's in the weight room. Everybody is bought in and feeling the family vibes. There's a lot of joking around that used to go back on when I was here, with my first stint with the Revs, when, there was a lot of good chemistry and a lot of good team building exercises. And the guys have just totally bought into us being a team, and that hasn't always been the case. And, that tends to lend itself to good results. And you see it through other teams that have won championships in MLS, that the teams are kind of what build, the season along and build winning ways for championship runs at the end of the year.
And obviously that comes down to the group of guys that's in the locker room, but how much of that is built by Bruce from the top?
Yeah, obviously they have to identify players and they have to fit in well with the group. You can go get this X player and you can go get Y player, but if they don't mesh well and fit in with the group that's already here, it kind of is null and void. And so they've done a very good job of picking the right players that fit our locker room, that fit our team, that fit our style, and it all comes together. It's like a recipe for a sweet meal.
It has been a delicious meal so far this season, and hopefully there's dessert still to come. But we mentioned bouncing back, too. There had been that little blip defensively. Over the course of a 5-game span, you guys have conceded multiple goals in 5 straight games, which has been really, really rare for this team over the course of recent seasons. But you guys responded to that pretty well, too. Just 1 goal conceded over the course of really the past almost 4 complete games. What for you has been working defensively for this group over the course of the past 4 games or so?
We've been very sound. We've limited their chances. I haven't had to do too much, which is a testament to the guys in front of me. And just being in the right spaces, being in the right spots, understanding, like I said, your roles. We keep going back to pretty much the fundamentals of defending and building, and the guys just believe in the guys beside them that, okay, if I screw up, the next guy beside me is going to cover for me. And so when you have that feeling and know that, okay, you may not be on your best game or have your best tackle at that specific moment, someone's going to be there to cover my tail. And so for that, guys knowing that people have got their back is something that I think builds people's confidence, and it shows in our team.
And I know for us here on the Far Post podcast who like to think we know stuff about the game, but we clearly don't know nearly as much as the guys in that locker room and on the field, it's kind of easy to point to the little bit of a shift. It's been a small shift in terms of the way the team is set up over the course of the past few games, where it's been more of whether it's a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2 with a diamond in the midfield. It has been a little bit more compact in central midfield. It seems like there's a little bit more protection in front of the back line. And it's easy for us to sit here and say, well, clearly that has been part of the difference of why you guys have been more solid. But do you think that has been helpful over the course of the past few games, is bringing guys a little bit more compact and kind of giving protection to the back line?
Yeah, I do. We're trying to find the right formation that fits our team. We've tinkered here and there throughout the whole season, and we tried some things in preseason. We've tried some things in the regular season. Some things work, some things haven't worked. But I think we found something that has worked in recent weeks, and I think it fits our team really well. Like you said, the way we're controlling the midfield and being sound defensively and a hard block to break down, but also having the pieces to go forward. And when you have the likes of our 3 DPs in the attacking third of the field, you tend to think good things are going to happen. And as much as we can get Carlos on the ball, that's the plan. And obviously you see the results, and we reap the benefits of that. And he's probably by far the best player in MLS right now.
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously been a professional for quite a while. Have you ever seen anyone performing at the level that Carlos is performing at right now, at least on one of your teams? It feels like what he's doing right now is absurd. I mean, we're not supposed to see guys setting up 5-6 quality chances every game. No. This is the best attacking midfielder playmaker that I've seen since I've been in the league in 15 years. I mean, it is incredible the amount of chances he creates. His movement, it's silky, it's smooth, it's on precise, it's on point. Everything he does is with a purpose, whether it's he's trying to open a space for somebody else, and not everybody sees those windows that he sees, and it's in a split second. And we get the likes of seeing it in training and small-sided games and 11v11s, and it's like, holy smokes. And then he brings it to the game, and it's even that much more brilliant and in front of everybody, so everybody can see how great of a mind he has and how good of a foot he has. And we're enjoying being on this side of it rather than the other end of it. I feel like there are enough examples now of him just making opponents fall down that why would you dive in on Carlos Heel anymore? I would basically just give him 5-6 yards of space and be like, look, I'm going to give you space to play a ball, I guess, but you're not going to make me look like a fool. Exactly, and that's the thing is like, okay, you give him the space, but then he drops a dime over the center backs in stride, and then you got one of our attacking guys on top of that. So it's like, how do you defend this guy? Yeah. And then now you're seeing that teams are spending 2 players to put around him, and which is opening up space for somebody else. And I don't know his fouling statistics, but I'm sure he's up there as one of the most foul players in the league. He's third in the league. Yeah. So I mean, that's just guys are trying to get around him and disrupt his rhythm. But as soon as you do that, if we can move the ball quickly enough, there's space for somebody else to attack and cause more trouble for them. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask about Matt Turner as well, because obviously he is away as we record this show with the U.S. national team, and it's been a really good start to his U.S. national team career, 5-0-0 in his first 5 appearances as we record on Wednesday ahead of that Thursday semifinal against Qatar/Qatar. No one seems to be able to decide how to pronounce the name of that country. I'll go with Qatar. That seems to be what we've decided on. But it really has been a precipitous rise for Matt Turner, and you've kind of been there for his entire rise. So I'm wondering how early on, being in training with Matt Turner every day, how early on did you realize this guy might be something more than a third-string goalkeeper in Major League Soccer? Yeah, probably after his first couple years. He started getting games in Richmond after his first couple years. He started playing, at a professional level. He didn't start playing until he was 16. So when he started getting games under his belt, he would go down to Richmond and do really well. The team wasn't scoring a lot of goals for him, but he was making saves to keep him in the game. And so he would come back and be high on confidence and be doing really well in training. He's always tried to fix his game, find one piece of his game that he hasn't been able to master yet. And he's working day in and day out, after training, before training, striking balls, working on his touch, just the little things, because obviously his shot stopping ability is second to none. And so he's trying to, have a well-rounded game. But I'd say within the last probably 3 or 4 years, I mean, you could just see the turn of events and the way things happen, and, his astronomical rise to where he is. And, that's a testament to him, his hard work, the coaching staff that we've had, the goalkeeping coaches that we've had over the last 3 or 4 years. And, it's just been an incredible rise for him. And, hopefully he stays on that same trajectory, because obviously that's where he wants to be, playing with the national team. And, hopefully he can get the number 1 shirt. Well, Brad, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. You're in the history books as the first the first in-person guest in the Revolution Training Center digital studio space. So you'll have that. That's for the rest of your career. Put that in my bio. Yeah, exactly. We'll get it on the website. Perfect. I know you want it there. Brad, best of luck this weekend as you guys look to make it 4 wins in a row down in Harrison, New Jersey against the New York Red Bulls. We will be back on the Far Post podcast with the rest of the crew. I guess I'll bring the rest of the crew back in now that I've had my alone time with Brad. And we will look ahead to that match against the Red Bulls. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Far Post Podcast, presented by ESports Gaming League. Thank you again to Brad Knighton for joining us, and I'm so glad that when I asked Brad to tell his favorite Paul Mariner story, he went straight to the staff race from preseason in 2009, because that is something that we actually do have video of. I know we referenced it several times on the Brad interview, but it's worth watching. It's not only is Brad Knighton on the camera, Taylor Twellman is on commentary. It's just absolutely epic. It's like a 6-minute long video, and what a memory for us to have with Paul in the Revolution.
Is that where Taylor got his Is that where he got his love of
first
commentary
on
from?
camera.
That was his first.
I honestly think it might be Taylor Twellman's commentary debut.
Wow.
Like, no joke, it might be his commentary debut.
And look at him now.
I know.
You're welcome, Taylor.
You could tell even from the start that he was a star.
I just have to remove the Chariots of Fire part at the end. But
Yeah, can we even say, are we in trouble just for saying Chariots
no,
of Fire?
we're good. It was kind of the Wild West back then, so it's not the Wild West.
But we can
now.
say the name Chariots
sure.
of Fire right now. Like, we don't have to bleep
Nope.
when I say
Go
we're not.
go
like,
listen to it on
Chariots of Fire.
Spotify and YouTube and everything. All your local favorite music listening.
There was a rugby union
Thanks.
player for England a few years ago, and his name was Martin O'Fire, and his nickname was Chariots.
No Fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Right?
That's really cool.
Yeah, clever.
Was his name O'Fire or O'Fire?
O'Fire.
O'Fire.
I think it was OFIAH, Martin O'Fire.
Hey, Cahal, speaking of nicknames.
Yes.
Whoa!
Yes.
That flip with your flow.
Yeah, that's
oh
my hair
goodness.
sound effect, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys, if you didn't see the video, I mean, Cahal has a little bit of a flow
Yeah.
going on now.
Hit
like
me in the
It
face
just
with
makes that noise, yeah.
whipping back and forth. I was
Yeah.
just going to say, though, speaking of nicknames,
Yes.
what do people call you?
What do they call me?
Yeah, we talked about this right before we hopped on. Do you not remember?
Yes. They call me Beaver.
We talked
think
about
we
this
talked
on
about
the
it on the
show,
show.
right?
Was it on the show?
Yeah.
Man, I can't keep
Are
track.
you drinking under the table?
This is actually vodka.
I feel like to be fair, that is a great example of the fact that just like the random crap we talk to each other before the show is no different
Yeah,
than the
the
stuff
record-
we're saying
it
to
is.
each
The
other.
record
when we're
button's
recording.
erroneous, yeah.
It's pretty much the same
I'm not
stuff.
convinced we hit record for that part either, but whatever.
I'm not
maybe we
either. There you go. There it again.
Yeah, because the whole conversation about you being Elizabeth, not Liz,
Yeah.
that was all on
That
the
was
show.
on the air, I think.
Yeah, that part was.
Oh, that was on the air.
Yeah,
that
so,
was
yeah,
on the air. That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, when did we start?
Yeah.
What day is it? Where are we?
It's been
Yeah.
a long week, man.
Get the
It
show
has-
back, will you, Jeff
Yeah,
or
let's
Lemieux?
do it.
I mean, how many days have we worked in a row?
All right. Well,
it just goes on.
we're at one of those points right now.
In the show, we can go either way.
Where it can go either way. What type of show are we going to be? We're about to find out. But no, the way that the Revs are playing right now, you're in that, or at least I'm in that place where I just cannot wait for the next game. I'm just eagerly anticipating the next 90 minutes that I get to watch this team play, that I get to watch Carlos Heel play and Gustavo Bo, and just you look forward to those 90 minutes on the weekend. And the next 90 minutes are on Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern time against the New York Red Bulls.
How great is
Third
that?
time they're playing the Red Bulls at 6 o'clock kick.
Get your drink
I
on
love-
early.
I love
It's
the
awesome.
earlier kicks. I'd prefer like a 1 o'clock
Love it.
kick personally.
Love it.
But 6 o'clock kick on Saturday. It's on TV 38 and MyRI TV. As I mentioned, it's the third meeting between these two teams already in the first half of the season. The Revs have won the first two, both at Gillette Stadium, a 3-1 win and a 3-2 win. We mentioned Carlos Heel had all 3 assists in that most recent meeting, just about a month ago at Gillette Stadium. And I'm going to bring up this stat because I think it's finally time. The Revs have won at Red Bull Arena in the past. They won there in the playoffs. They beat the Red Bulls at Red Bull Arena in 2014 in the Eastern Conference Championship.
What a day that was.
They have
Bring on the
won.
caveats now.
They have won multiple regular season games at Red Bull Arena against, at the time, the Montreal Impact last year and New York City FC earlier this year. The Revs, to this point, still remarkably have not beaten the New York Red Bulls in a regular season game at Red Bull Arena. 12 tries. They haven't won just yet, but it feels like if there's ever a time that this team is going to break that, it feels like, if not now, when? Feels
it's
now.
I
now.
agree.
It's now. Write it down.
All right, that's bold prediction.
Yep, write it
Reds
down.
finally get the first regular season
Yep.
win over the Red Bulls at Red Bull Arena.
Yeah, we're going to
Saturday.
take that monkey off our backs and just beat it.
We're talking about beating a lot of animals on this show today.
Yes.
Why don't we just set it free into the wild?
Well, we could do that too.
Maybe
That's
not beat it.
okay. That's fine. It's a better idea.
Just take it off his back and gently.
Let's set
we'll
it
just gently
free.
place
Yeah.
it.
And the
Yes.
horse is supposed to be dead in the saying. So
That's
you're not
true.
Really, you know.
I did, but
Yeah,
that's. I felt like it was worse to say beating a dead horse. It sounded
We
even
did not
worse.
kill. Ooh.
I wasn't expecting that. Why are you touching me?
Wait, you'd rather beat an alive
Are
horse?
you
that
okay?
allowed?
Are you okay?
Is that
Wow,
allowed?
you just jumped out of your chair. Are you all right?
I mean, I don't think I jumped out of the chair.
I would, is
I'm
that,
going to bring this back to the
is
show,
that the horse?
back to the Red Bulls.
Was that the horse dying?
Dying.
I would
That was
like
me
to
bringing
point
the show
out-
off the rails, bringing it back.
I would like to point out we did not kill the horse.
No.
We just came upon the dead horse.
Yes. But the Revs, I mean, the reason it feels like now is the time. One, they're obviously playing incredibly well in the course of the past week or so, but also this team away from home under Bruce Arena. They have 4 wins away from home this year. That's tied
Pretty
for most in MLS.
It is pretty
15 road wins under
the young guys
Bruce
say,
Arena
pretty
since he
decent.
joined the team in June 2019. I don't know. I ask the players this all the time, and no one seems to ever have an answer. I'm going to pose it here. Why do you think the Revs have been so good on the road under Bruce Arena? Is there anything you can point to why Bruce Arena has been so good with this team away from home? That's, I feel like, moving on. No, it's tough. It's none of the players can seem to figure it out. The only thing I can come back to is it seems like one of the tenets of the Bruce Arena coaching philosophy is to simplify things. It seems like they don't overthink things. It seems like every player knows what their role is, and they go out every game and they worry about doing their job. To quote another organization here in Foxborough, everybody goes out.
The Uprising?
Yes, this is the Uprising, Boston Uprising. It's just it feels like everything's simplified a little bit. We're not going to overthink things. We're not going to overanalyze and do all that. It just seems like it's more simplified. And maybe that's a better approach away from home.
Well, we've talked about this like specifically on the pregame show multiple times, but this team their mentality is game by game. And so even this week, speaking with Richie Williams, Ada De La Garza, and Tommy McNamara, asking them specifically about the Red Bulls, they're focused on, even though the Red Bulls are 9th place in the East, they're 1, 2, and 3 in the last 6 games. And they're a tough opponent. They're a really direct team. They're a team that's really strong at home, and they go on with a laundry list of things that they need to keep in mind about playing at the New York Red Bulls. So I feel like they don't underestimate any team that they go up against on the road, and they approach that game single-handedly, thinking, "Let me just focus on this upcoming 90 minutes," and aren't looking at 3-game weeks or really tough stretches that we talk about where it's 5 games in 18 days. They're really just focused on how they can approach that one game against that one team and those specific tactics that they need to keep in mind.
And when you look at individual players who have had success against this New York Red Bulls team, keep an eye on Gustavo Bo on Saturday. Obviously, we mentioned Carlos Heel having 3 assists against the Red Bulls the last time they played. But Gustavo Bo has eaten up this Red Bulls team in 4 appearances, 4 goals, 1 assist. He's got 1 goal in each of his 4 appearances against the Red Bulls. Every single time it has been punishing the Red Bulls for playing a high line. He has gotten in behind that back line from near midfield just about every time he has scored against them. So the Red Bulls, it doesn't seem like that is how they are going to play. So if the Revs can take advantage of getting in behind that team, just saying, keep an eye on Gustavo Bo on Saturday. The good news is we should be keeping our eye on Adam Buxa on Saturday as well, because Adam Buxa had a really scary collision
that's scary.
on Sunday night. I feel better saying it now because the good news is Adam Buxa is healthy. He was fully cleared. He did not have a concussion. There was more concern with his eye than there was for the concussion. They did all the tests. He is back in full training. He's available for the game this weekend. So fantastic news for Adam Buxa, because in the moment there were so many parallels to the injury that ended Taylor Twellman's career that it was jarring to see that collision on Sunday night.
Yeah, that was scary.
Really scary.
But fantastic news that Adam Buxa is cleared, good to go. We know DeJuan Jones is back in training as well. So we start to see a little bit of competition at that left back spot, because we saw Christian Mafla go 90 minutes on Sunday. He's got back-to-back starts under his belt, and now you get DeJuan Jones back in the mix. And really for the first time this season, maybe you start to see a little bit of competition at that left back spot. And you need a little bit of rotation in there as well, because, again, it's just going to be an insanely busy summer coming up. John Bell, unavailable for this weekend. We don't really have an in-depth update on John Bell. The update today was he's out. That was the update on John Bell. So obviously then you start to think about the depth at center back a little bit. But AJ De La Garza has stepped in.
Yeah,
and has looked the part.
And to revisit sort of our conversation earlier about this, how close this team is, right? And that's probably an area you can be a little concerned about. Is that centre back depth, right? And it's going to be really, really tested Saturday, and we'll get an even closer look at it than we've had in recent weeks. So it'll be interesting.
I think too, Tommy McNamara was talking about this earlier this week and kind of said that this club has really done. When I asked him about the rotation that they've had, he talked about how this club has done such a great job building up the strength on this roster, and he kind of came in at the right time. If you look at when he came in with the team last year, but just over the course of this offseason in particular, I feel like the coaching staff really looked at what needs do we have and let's get on and how we can fill those. And I think this is a demonstration of how their moves are paying dividends, showing especially the depth that we now have along the back line.
Yeah, the depth going to be tested once again. We don't know for sure, as we're recording a little bit earlier on Thursday, the U.S. and Canada both set to play semifinals in the CONCACAF Gold Cup on Thursday night. The hope is, for the sake of Matt Turner, Henry Kessler, Tejan Buchanan, that they both advance to the final of the CONCACAF Gold Cup, and they've got a match on Sunday night against each other. If they don't advance tonight, how that potentially affects whether Henry Kessler or Tejan Buchanan or Matt Turner could potentially be available for Saturday, I don't know. I don't know how tight a turnaround that is. Might depend on how much guys play tonight.
Yep.
If Henry Kessler doesn't play tonight and the U.S., heaven forbid, is knocked out, is Henry Kessler available for the Revs on Saturday? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. But
tough one for the U.S. against that CONCACAF powerhouse Qatar.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It really is. This should be regardless.
Where in CONCACAF is Qatar?
Irregardless, I corrected myself.
You did it yourself. I'm so proud of you. I'm going to touch your shoulder. Okay. I'm so proud of you. Good job.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly where. Obviously, I hope people aren't listening going, these idiots really know that Qatar isn't in CONCACAF.
Yes,
because if people had just listened to this show, I can absolutely see how people would think these are guys who don't seem like they know where.
I mean, that's how I view us.
Qatar, and I know obviously. I think people seem confused, and the confusing part is everyone says it's pronounced Qatar. It's Qatar. It's Qatar. So I got used to saying Qatar. But then there are Qatar Airways commercials where they say Qatar Airways.
I have never heard it pronounced Qatar except in this country.
Okay.
I feel like I've never heard it pronounced Qatar.
It's over the course of the past couple of years. I feel like since they were awarded the World Cup, been hearing Qatar.
Yeah, people say Qatar here, but I've never heard that anywhere.
Okay.
My brother lives in Bahrain, and he pronounces it as Qatar.
Qatar.
So
okay. Interesting. Yeah, I don't, because now it's one of those things where I feel self-conscious regardless of how I say it.
Yeah.
Because if I say Qatar,
I think it's Qatar.
Okay. I'm just gonna go.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm not going with Qatar. Okay. That's like aluminum. That's one of your made-up American pronunciations. Aluminum. Silly.
Is there a different pronunciation of
aluminium?
Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding. Look how it's spelled.
It does have an IUM.
Yes, it does.
Is that how they say it in Ireland?
That's how they say it in the rest of the English-speaking world.
I don't know. I'm genuinely asking. I'm not making fun of you. I have no idea.
It's only aluminum here.
That's crazy.
How is it spelled?
Can you say it one more time?
Aluminium.
Aluminium.
How do you say plutonium? Is that plutonium?
Plutonium, yeah.
Is that plutonium?
No, we say plutonium.
What do you say, plutonium?
I mean, to be fair, I don't find myself saying plutonium nearly as often as I say aluminum.
So that's what it is? Because you say it a lot, you made it easy and lazy?
I did not decide that aluminum is pronounced aluminum.
Did America decide? Oh, well, aluminium's just too hard to say, so let's just say aluminum. That's easier.
Wait,
let's just do that.
Can't wait for when I go home tonight. I'm cooking dinner with my boyfriend to be like,
yeah, get the aluminium foil.
Can you pass the aluminium? I can't even say it. Can you pass the aluminium foil, please? I'm going to set up a camera so I can get the reaction. Yes. It's going to be good.
Aluminium foil, yes.
Yeah, see, it sounds even more ridiculous when you tack foil onto it.
That's actually tin foil. We call it tin foil.
We would say tin foil.
Yes. Okay.
It's tin foil, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not tin, it's aluminum.
It's
aluminium.
It's aluminium.
I don't know. The Weird Al says aluminum in that song, so.
Making my head spin. How many
I feel like
options?
Weird Al is not going to be the person for all the pronunciations.
Don't you dare! Right? Yes, he is. I don't know.
Weird Al is a smart dude. All right. Well,
speaking of weird,
irregardless.
Yes, Jeff.
should be, you would imagine this would be the last game without that trio of international players. The final of the Gold Cup is on Sunday night. The Revs are back in action next Wednesday when they are home against Nashville. So
Tricky one.
Not to look ahead, but you've got this trip to Red Bull Arena this weekend, and then in the span of 5 days, you've got home games back-to-back against a Nashville team that's one of the only teams that's beaten the Revs to this point in the season, and then a Philadelphia team, which the Revs drew down at. Philadelphia should have obviously won that game.
Yep.
That was a refereeing
Robbed
call that robbed them in that game, but
Robbed.
that's a whole different conversation. But there's it seems like that's a little stretch
another
there. Where
little
it's
test,
like, all right, let's find out what this team's all about.
Yep.
With these next few games coming up, and we'll look forward to answering those questions over the course of the next couple of weeks. Did someone just touch you, or did you just have a
just had a shiver? Someone just stepped in my grave. I had a little shiver there. Sorry.
There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah. And then, hey, we'll come back. You want to come back in a couple of weeks and talk about the Revolution?
I would love to.
We should do that.
Let's do it.
Right, same place. A couple
Let's
weeks
do
from
it.
now,
I would love it.
we'll carve out 4 hours in the afternoon.
Okay.
Since that seems to be what we do.
Okay. Can we do cocktails or something next time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I would.
Yes.
I would much prefer it.
Okay.
All right.
Well, they're playing us off. It's like the Oscars. They're playing us off.
They're like, see you
I'd
later.
like to thank the
Your time's
Academy.
up. Your time's
I'd like to
up.
thank my Lord and Savior. I'd like to thank my mom and
Phasing us
dad.
out.
I've got more to say.
I'd like to thank.
I do want to mention the sponsor. Thanks. It's the Far Post Podcast presented by ESports Gaming League.